It's the Eagle Community Television Forum with your host, Gary Shorman.
You're watching Eagle Community Television. This is the Forum. I'm Mike Kerner in for Gary Shorman this week. The show brought to you by Hayes Med. And our guest today is Ida Lundy. I know a lot of people in Hayes and the Hayes area might know Ida and seen Ida over the years. You've been around with Best Western Vagabond. You've been around with a lot of hotels and a lot of boards in the community too.
That's right.
So let's talk about that a little bit. You know, Ida goes back a long way with a lot of hotels and stuff, and you and your husband, how did you guys ever make it here to Hayes, Kansas? I knew you guys kind of grew up in Oklahoma.
Lloyd had a high school friend in Veneta, Oklahoma, and he was actually in the grocery business, but he did a trip out to Colorado, and coming back he said, you know, there's a need for motels. This was kind of the transition between the old campground and the motel, the beginning of it. So he decided to build one, and we ran that for him in Great Bend, Kansas for a year or so. And then later he sold that one and built one in Salina, and we leased that from him for 3 or 4 years, I don't remember how many. And then eventually Lloyd had some good buddies and they all went together, bought the Vagabond, and we went out there February 1, 1966.
Wow. So you've been around here for a while, and,
yes.
And you've probably seen a lot of stuff and a lot of changes in that business over the years. You've also had, with friends and as you say, your husband's buddies and stuff, have had hotels and motels, I guess, all across Kansas, haven't you?
Yes. At one time we had 6, which I'm not sure how we managed that, but Junction City, Manhattan, Liberal,
but all across the state of
Kansas.
Yes, I think most recently a lot of people knew you from, you had Best Western Vagabond, you had, was it the Budget Villa too,
yes,
in Hayes?
We did.
And then you also put in the new Best Western, which is north side of Hayes.
Yes.
And I think another project that a lot of people might know if they're watching over in the Ellis area, you had the hotel over in the Ellis area too.
Yes.
So a lot of changes for you guys over the years, and you've probably seen a big change in that business too over the years.
Oh my,
too,
yes. In Great Bend, when we first went there, that was back in the days when the telephone system was the plug-in lines, which Lloyd knew nothing about, but I'd been a telephone operator, so all in good.
So in those years, in the early years, you had to do a little bit of everything. You probably had to clean rooms, be an operator,
oh my,
a front desk, and probably never got any sleep, did you guys?
Probably not. Well, we didn't have 24-hour desk help then. They rang the doorbell, and we would answer it, and of course, at 2 in the morning, lots of times, while they would run out of cigarettes or whatever, and we'd have to get up and see about that. But if somebody didn't show up for work, well, guess who did it?
It was you and your husband or whoever else was owning it. Maybe the kids too.
Yes, they got rung into that. They enjoyed the swimming pool when we had that, but they also had to clean it.
So there's a lot of things. You know, in the hotel business and motel business, I know before we went on camera today, you were telling me the story about how things have changed over the years, and I'm sure you've seen a lot of changes in that business over the years. And you know, the early years, one of the stories that Ida was telling me about was in the early years, they paid for their rooms up front as opposed, well, not up front, after they checked out, whereas now they have to pay for their rooms up front.
That's just a transition into pay before you use it, because you may run off without paying.
and I'm sure in those early years, it was before credit cards, and a lot of people didn't have credit cards.
That's right.
And if they did have credit cards, you probably didn't take them.
They just didn't have them. I don't remember having a credit card machine until, I guess, at the Vagabond.
Really?
We might have had one in Salina.
Oh, so in the early years, when you were in the hotel business, people would come in and they probably want to pay cash or write checks, and you probably accepted checks probably from everywhere, didn't you?
Oh yes, indeed we did.
Well, it was a different time though, wasn't it?
It was. You could be confident that it was going to clear. And these days, of course, people don't use checks much anymore, it seems to me.
Yeah, everybody I think has to do credit cards, it
They
seems
do.
like that, or with hotels anymore, you want that so that you've got some security too for you as a hotel operator.
Right.
Now, the hotel business, I'm sure you've seen a lot of. I don't know if what any stories that stick out to you over the years, something that you remember as maybe a funny story that's happened to you guys, and you maybe tell at family reunions, you laugh about a lot.
Oh, we had a lot of those, and the middle of the night things were the ones that really stand out. For instance, the night that the bottom fell out of a 50-gallon hot water tank, and Lloyd was gone someplace. I was not happy.
So those were the early years, and a lot of things happened to you guys, and you got a lot of stories to tell us over that, and you guys kind of became, I guess, permanent fixtures here in Hayes, and you were on a lot of boards and stuff here locally, you and your husband, and trying to really fit into the community.
Yes, we made a lot of good friends, and this is a wonderful city, community, and we've always enjoyed it, even though I will be moving in the next year or so. But
Yeah.
I always have fond memories.
Well, I know a lot of people have noticed that you sold your hotels here just recently, and
Yes.
now which ones are the ones that you've sold?
The Budget Host Villa was one that we sold, and the Vagabond, which is America's best value, and the Butterfield Inn.
So those are the ones you sold now, and you still have the one in Ellis, right?
Yes, we do.
So those are the ones that are gone, and there's new operators already in there now. They've taken
Yes,
over.
yes.
So that's kind of, I guess, a change in your life too. A lot less to do.
Oh, indeed, because the bookwork on something like that is immense. And of course, my daughter is in it with me, and Sabrina, who's been with me for over 20 years, and the majority of the load falls on them. So they're real happy to get that off.
Well, you know, we've talked about some changes in the business over the years, and I know there's been a lot of things that you guys have done, you and your husband had done over the years too, like serving on national boards and stuff. And I want to talk about that a little bit, maybe in the second half of the show, and maybe what you've got planned for your move, and what you're going to do here in the second half of your life.
Okay.
And we'll get into that in the next part of the show. Again, our guest is Ida Lundy, and she's a longtime resident of Hayes, Kansas, had Best Western Vagabond in Hayes, and also the Best Western, what's the name of that one, the up north that you had? The Best Western Butterfield Inn.
Butterfield Inn.
Forgot the last part of that name, but she is our guest today here on the forum, and I want to thank you for joining us. We'll be back with the second half of the show in just a few minutes, being brought to you by Hayes Med.
Youthful body, tight tummy, smooth facial lines. Greystone Cosmetic and Reconstructive Surgery is here to help you achieve your goals and give yourself the new look you've always wanted. Greystone offers sophisticated surgical and non-surgical cosmetic procedures. With services now available locally, there's no need to wait any longer. Contact Greystone Cosmetic and Reconstructive Surgery at Hayes Medical Center today, or online at greystonecosmetic.hayesmed.com.
It's a beautiful day in our super high-speed internet great customer service neighborhood. Like you, this is where we live. In fact, our company is employee-owned, so it's our goal to improve the quality of life for everyone in our community by delivering faster, more reliable internet, clearer, more feature-laden phone service, quality TV channels, all with the level of customer service you'd expect from people who are your neighbors. Eagle Communications. Our community connected.
You're watching the Eagle Community Television Forum. I'm Mike Kerner, in for Gary Shorman. And if you've got any questions or comments about the show, Gary would love to hear from you. It's gary.shorman@eaglecom.net. Again, gary.shorman@eaglecom.net. This show this week being brought to you by Hayes Med. By the way, you can look this show up on its Facebook page. It's ECTV Forum on Facebook. So again, we've got some great things up there for you to see in some of the previous shows. Our guest today is Ida Lundy, and Ida's been a longtime resident here in the city of Hayes, and you've had hotels, motels all over the state of Kansas. And
Yes.
kind of talked about that and talked about what the business was like in the early years, and boy, it's changed so much.
Oh, it has.
And some of the stuff I want to talk to you about a little bit right now is, you know, the changes. We see a lot of changes not only in regular business, but in the hotel business there's changes too, with not only employees, but a lot of things happen there. What's something you see in the hotel business that's probably going to be changing here soon?
Soon, the technology is growing leaps and bounds. Just like where we used to have people just write down when they came into work and when they left. Then it got into the time clock where they stamp the thing, and now it's going to where they have a thumbprint as they check in and check out, which makes it a lot easier for the people keeping the books.
Yeah.
Because it can go into a computer, and that computes all of the time and makes it a lot easier.
So that's kind of on the back end side of it, and then you also see it too with the. I guess you see it also with the people that are staying at the hotels. Security has changed so much too. I mean, with the door locks that have happened, and all the cameras that you seem to have to put up anymore. And
yes.
It's kind of gets expensive for hotel operators.
It does. I remember at the Butterfield we have 16 cameras there.
Oh, really? So they go all over. And then, of course, I'm sure that keeping up with trends in the hotel business and keeping things fresh and new, that has to happen all the time too.
Oh yes, that's an ongoing thing.
Yeah, changing out mattresses, about one, and you talked about technology a few years ago, was all these new TVs you got to put in all the rooms.
Oh yes, we have the flat screen now. When we first started out, the bulky TV thing, they stole them anyway. But
oh really?
Oh yes, but when the flat screens came out, we heard that they just fit into certain suitcases, and luckily we never experienced that. But now I think we have to go to an even bigger flat screen TV.
So they can't put them in suitcases.
Probably not.
No, but a lot of them have locks on them and stuff like that. So
they're locked down.
Right, and then you also have in the hotel business anymore, a lot of people want wireless internet, so you have to kind of put that all in. So there's so many things you have to do to cater to these new business people and new customers that you have.
Would you believe that we have to put a special lockdown on the light bulbs when they went to little twirly light bulbs?
Oh really?
Because they're really expensive and they just disappeared real fast. So there's a special little lock that you put on there to keep them from doing that.
A lot of changes from the old days when you would take checks from anybody across the United
absolutely.
States. So one of the other things that has happened over the years too, and this was a really big thing, and I don't think a lot of people realize this, but you and your husband served on the National Board for Best Western, president of the board for National Best Western, and that's a big honor, don't you think?
It is indeed.
And how do you get a position like that?
By being so involved with it. And of course, he was a governor for years and years. He's the liaison between the member and the board of directors. There's a director for each of the, 7
regions?
And so you serve as a liaison between them and the member and try to bring their problems to the board so that the member himself doesn't have to go in. And this is a member organization. So by doing that, he was acquainted with an awful lot of people and, of course, knew all the people at the headquarters and eventually became a director, which he enjoyed very much, but it took a lot of time. We were in Phoenix once a month. And but on the flip side, we got to do a lot of international travel. We traveled pretty well around the world in those years, going to the international meetings, and it was a lot of fun.
And I'm sure that you saw a lot of different things overseas than you saw in hotels in the United States.
Oh, yes. Beds mainly, I think. Most everything when we traveled, everything was twin beds.
Oh, really? So not the big beds that you have here in the United States?
Not a king size anywhere.
And I noticed also in the United States, it seems like at the hotels, everybody wants those little refrigerators too, and they probably didn't have those over there as well.
Well, a few of them did, amazingly.
Oh, really?
Yes, they did. But they didn't, they were the smaller hotels over there, and I think they've gotten bigger since then. But it was mainly as they all started out, they called it the ma and pa operation. So you got more acquainted with the owner back then. I think that has changed too, where if you have a 200-room hotel, no, you're not going to have one little gentleman heading things up. You're going to have a lot of people.
Right. So one of the things that your husband had a chance to do over the years, and being president of the board, he had a chance to tell the board what was happening at the hotel level, and had a chance to maybe make some changes that they maybe didn't know that needed to be changed within the company, and maybe make things more profitable for them.
And that's the good thing about their board of directors. They are hotel operators.
So that works out pretty well then.
Oh, yes.
And so how long was that term?
They're 2 3-year terms. So he was there for 2 terms.
You were probably happy to be on it, but happy to be off, right?
That's right.
It kind of works that way. Well, now that you've sold your properties, you've got some extra time on your hands. So what's planned for your life now?
Well, we came from Oklahoma originally, and my daughter has a horse boarding business, and she has bought a place in Oklahoma, and we plan to move there when we get things wrapped up here.
So you'll be moving down to Oklahoma, and so we won't be seeing you as much around the city of Hays.
Oh, one never knows.
But you've given back to the community so many times and so many things. I know that with Fort Hays State University and other organizations throughout the community too, and I know that I think it was I want to say High Plains Pet. Well, what am I looking for? The term I'm looking for with I forgot the name.
The developmental services is one thing that Lloyd was really involved with.
Oh, okay.
And we've always been involved with that sort of thing. Made a lot of good friends, and I think that we have probably reaped more than we've given
Well, we appreciate you in the community and all that you've done, and we wanted to share your story with everybody out there because I think it's interesting to people out there to find out about the hotel business and kind of the early years. You don't think about how all things like that started out and where you've come from and where you've gone to. So we appreciate you coming in and being our guest today.
Well, I appreciate you having me.
So Ida Lundy is our guest today here on the show. It is the Forum. Again, if you do have any questions or comments, Gary would love to hear from you. It's gary.shorman@eaglecom.net. And the show is the Forum, brought to you by Hayes Med. I want to thank you for joining us here as well today on Eagle Community Television. I'm Mike Kerner.
Youthful body, tight tummy, smooth facial lines. Greystone Cosmetic and Reconstructive Surgery is here to help you achieve your goals and give yourself the new look you've always wanted. Greystone offers sophisticated surgical and non-surgical cosmetic procedures. With services now available locally, there's no need to wait any longer. Contact Greystone Cosmetic and Reconstructive Surgery at Hayes Medical Center today or online at greystonecosmetic.hayesmed.com.